Yeah, because he's estimated that there should be 10 quadrillion alien civilizations in the observable universe.
That's a lot of aliens, folks.
10 quadrillion. Quadrillion.
That is a lot.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Trippy Talk with Josh Eldor.
Hey!
And we are here to do a Trippy Talk on Stonehenge. I always say Stonehenge.
Hedge.
It just sounds
Stonehenge.
like Stonehenge. Sounds weird to me. But anyway, if you didn't know, Stonehenge is a very fascinating and mysterious, what would you say, landmarks?
It's a monument.
Yeah, one of the 7 wonders of the world though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It actually is, I think.
Thousands and thousands of people millions of people travel to England where this is every year to see it. It's incredible. And the truth about it is we really don't know the truth about it at all. So
that's what makes it trippy, right?
That's what makes it trippy.
Just think about all of the theories as to what it's for, how it was built. It's like the pyramids in Egypt. We don't know exactly how they were built or why they were built, but the theories surrounding them are very interesting.
Before we get started with that, I just wanted to remind you guys of our podcast. Josh and I are launching the 4th episode of Mile Higher Podcast this coming Sunday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we are working so hard on our podcast. We'd really appreciate any of you guys checking it out, taking a minute. It's great to listen to on like a commute or a bus ride or while you do dishes or clean. It's available SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitchin, TuneIn, Stitchin, I think I said Stitcher, TuneIn.
Tuner, you said Tuner.
And milehigherpodcast.com. If you don't know who Josh is, if you're new to my channel, this is my husband. He also makes videos, more scientific, futuristic, alien type content.
Space, yeah.
Yes, so definitely check out his videos. There'll be a link below for that. But let's go ahead and get started.
So Stonehenge is located in England. It's actually 80 miles southwest of London. Okay. And it consists of 100 very large stones in what looks like a circle.
Yeah.
Or a few circles, actually. So the stones that are actually a part of the Stonehenge monument are at least 13 feet tall, 7 feet wide, and they weigh anywhere from 3 to 5 tons, which are some of the smaller stones, to the largest stones weighing up to 25 tons.
Wow.
Which is very heavy.
So 3 to 5 for the small?
For just the small stones, yeah.
Oh, wow. The weirdest thing about how big they are, though, and how heavy they are is like, how the hell did they get there? Because they're really out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Farming area.
Yeah, it's
big fields.
Yeah, middle of nowhere. So how did they get these huge, heavy stones without the wheel? At this point in history, we do not believe they had invented the wheel yet. Same with the Egyptians. So we've never been able to fully understand how they were moving things.
So what makes Stonehenge so interesting is that scholars and archaeologists really have no idea how it was built, really when it was built. All we know is that it's been around for thousands of years. I think almost 5,000 years now it's been around, so even pre-Stone Age. Many archaeologists believe that Stonehenge was actually built in multiple phases over a period of 5,000 years. It wasn't all built at once, but started with a basic stone circle, and then over time they brought over thousands of years potentially, which they believe that it took nearly 1,200 or 1,500 years to actually just build the monument, because the blue stones actually were brought from over 200 miles away.
Yeah,
because
and the blue stones are the smaller ones, like in the center.
Right.
So those could have been added later on, or were those the first ones that were originally there?
They would have been brought in the initial phase of construction, I believe.
Okay,
so
because that'd be the center part. So it kind of like people kept adding to it, to the outer layers over the years.
Right.
But the blue stones in the center, it's like a giant mystery because what the stones are made of is not indigenous to that area.
Right, you don't find those types of stones in the area where Stonehenge is, so somehow, according to academic scholars, they believe that these primitive people somehow carried these 2 to 3 ton blue stones over 100 miles to this location. For what purpose? And that's what the mystery is why did they build this?
We were just watching a video on Vox about it, and they mentioned that it would be the equivalent of carrying 40 hippos, dead hippos, from DC to Philly, which is super far.
Which is like 200 miles.
Yeah, just like with your hands. Can you imagine what if I was like, all right, Josh, here, there's 40 dead hippos in the backyard. I'm gonna need you to assemble a little team and like carry them.
There's no way. I mean, it
No.
doesn't make any sense because how many people would you need? You'd need
Yeah.
like hundreds of people to
Yeah, you would.
pull 2 to 3 tons. Unless people were super buff and super strong back then.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there who actually think that they were in glaciers and that over time glaciers moved the stones to the area so that,
Right.
that's how they were moved. Giant ice glaciers over thousands and thousands of years.
Right,
which
which
is
is-
possible.
Absolutely,
It doesn't
because
seem very likely to me. It seems very convenient that those stones would just like end up at the right place,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
yeah, it
Seems
does.
weird to
Especially
me.
these specific types of stones, these blue stones.
That seems like an answer for like, oh shit, we have no idea how the fuck they did it. Let me go ahead and give you guys our best guess.
Glaciers. The reason why it's actually called Stonehenge is because the henge part is a giant dugout circle or pit around the actual monument itself. And we know that this was dug because we've actually found remnants of antlers and things like that that could have been used by these Neolithic people to dig out the actual henge itself. So
People go there now to see the summer solstice.
yeah, the site faces directly where the sun is during summer solstice. It's pretty much perfectly aligned with the summer solstice.
Well, that, you know, a lot of people think that that's the point of Stonehenge, that it was a celebratory
Right.
place, that maybe they believed in a god that brought summer solstice, or, you know, that
Yeah,
it
unity.
was a worship
Right,
place.
a unity monument where everybody got together and was like, so like I mentioned earlier, Stonehenge was likely built in multiple phases, and one of those phases was bringing in these blue stones. They estimate that there was roughly 80 blue stones that were involved with the building of Stonehenge. And actually there's only roughly like 43 that remain today. But
wow.
they think that there was even more at the time when it was originally built.
Yes, and that's something that's really important to note, is how much Stonehenge has actually changed
Right.
since its original time of being built. It's been changed quite a few times. Chances are many different civilizations kind of put their own spin on it, anyone who came across it. And then not only that, but in the 1920s, they started actually rebuilding a lot of the structure and like re-putting it together. And there's all these photos that came out recently. It's actually really interesting. For a long time, it was kept really hush-hush that they were I don't know. Restoring, that's
Yes.
the word. Restoring them, because we don't know if they're in the exact position that they were originally, though. They could have
Yeah.
moved it around, but it's still the original materials is the thing. But people for years didn't know this and would travel really far to see Stonehenge, thinking they're seeing the original version of it that hasn't been touched by anyone.
Yeah.
But that's just not true, and they actually kind of got caught and then eventually started being like, oh yeah, and then now they start to disclose all the information, and it's like part of the tours and stuff, I believe, now that they did this. But for a while, it was seemed like they were kind of trying to keep it quiet, which makes sense. Like, if you had something that isn't, you know, if I have the original Bible, let's say, people are going to pay a lot more money for the original
Right.
Bible
In its full
than
form, yeah.
a rewritten version of it, you know?
Or the original copy versus like a
Yes.
like replica. It's the same
Right.
kind of thing with any type of artifact.
Yes.
It's like the real Mona Lisa versus just a replica.
Yes.
Nobody wants to see the replica.
No.
They want to see the
Well, you
actual
certainly
one.
wouldn't pay that much to
Right.
go travel
Right.
all around the world to see something that's just a replica or a reformed version.
Yeah, and that's what was so baffling to me because I actually did not know. I've always been under the impression that
Same.
Stonehenge was untouched, and that's
Yeah.
literally what you see at Stonehenge is how it's been for thousands of years.
No.
But that's not the case. Once you start doing some digging, you start realizing and finding actual photographs of people restoring Stonehenge and lifting the stones back up on top of each other, and they actually had to.
Kind of takes the magic.
Yeah, they had to reinforce it with concrete, and you know, some of them had fallen over, which
Yeah.
you know, it looks good. I will say that. It
Yeah.
looks cool, but it kind of takes away, like you just said, from the magic of Stonehenge.
Yes.
Because, you know, what if it's not meant to look like that?
So here's a drawing of what we believe it looked like during the 1700s. It looks pretty different than it does now. And here's an image of it in 1877, showing what it looked like before they restored it. It's just weird to me that they've gone to all these lengths to kind of try to skip over that bit of
Yeah,
information in
absolutely.
history books and documentaries. They don't really ever explain that
No.
it was redone. That's what seems weird to me.
That's really bizarre.
Is it just a money-making scam, knowing that like people will come so far if they think it's real, or
a million people travel from across the world to see it every year? Of course it is. You know, when you go to the actual official Stonehenge website, they make very little mention of the fact that they restored it to what it is, and they definitely don't tell you that it was a major restoration. Not just like, they're like, yeah, we made some minor improvements to improve the safety of the structure, blah, 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 blah. But they're more focused on, get your tickets, get your passes, get your, you know, here's all these Stonehenge merch. And it's just like, it's been so commercialized.
Oh, yeah.
And the British government has definitely wanted to keep all of the restoration efforts, you know,
because it does take away
wraps.
from it. I mean, it definitely decreases my want to go see it, although I would love to. It definitely doesn't make it as special as I thought it was. So it's kind of disappointing when you find that out. And I mean, they could have been hiding it for money, like we just said, or could they have changed the original structure to a point where there was something important there that we're missing now?
Or maybe before you could actually see, you know, some other significance to it that you can't see now.
Yeah.
And they, you know, like aliens or something. Maybe there was like some alien artifacts or etchings or something, and, you know, they wanted to cover that up. Or
it was some type of guide, or like the truth about where we come from. Or, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that think Stonehenge was literally a map of the stars, kind of, or of a galaxy where human DNA originated from.
There was a study done a few years back by a professor named Vince Gaffney at the University of Bradford. And what he did is he actually took basically like X-ray technology using lasers and other technology that we didn't have prior to actually see if there's anything underneath Stonehenge. Yeah, you could think it's some ritual site or burial grounds.
Yeah.
But what he found is that there's actually at least 15 other monuments underground.
Yes.
Yet to be discovered because we haven't dug holes around it yet.
That's so
there
crazy.
could be other structures, there could be tunnels. I mean, I'm starting to think that this could have been a extremely elaborate setup. And there could be somehow like tunnels going underneath Stonehenge, or maybe there's other
there's
statues
other like what they think are burial sites, but similar type structures close, that maybe there's like ways to get to them and stuff. I mean, God, what a shame that like we can learn something like that and they won't dig it up and find out, because it's like sacred land.
Yeah, because nobody would come visit it if they're doing construction over there and digging holes.
Yeah.
They do believe that there was some sort of ritual ceremonies that took place at Stonehenge, because they found remnants of human bodies, at least over 60, of men, women, and children there.
Yeah.
Which a lot of historians and archaeologists believed at first that it was just sort of a sacred site for, you know, the men at the time. But the fact that they found women and even children shows that it probably had even more significance. It wasn't just this rare place that they went to, and that it could have been very much a part of their daily lives and societies.
Well, I mean, as we talked about in the podcast, the ancient Egyptians regarded women just as highly as men.
Right.
So, I mean, I still think it could have been for a specific family or for an elite group. Like I could see some type of family back then being like the royal ones, the most important ones, or they actually believed they were gods somehow and they buried them at this site. I mean, that would make sense as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth about Stonehenge is we have no idea what it is, so it could be something just, I mean, pretty normal for a culture, or it could be something way more intense and advanced. I mean, we really have no way of figuring that out.
And that's what's so great about history, is it's so subjective and so speculative, because none of us were there, and we can find artifacts and bones and blah 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 and you know, carbon date stuff and kind of have a rough estimate of how old things are. But at the end of the day, we just don't know what it is that we're even looking at. You know? And so the official story that you'll be, you know, if you look it up, that you'll be told is that this was built by just Neolithic tribes that lived in the area way back then, and they, with their little bone picks and hammers, they carved these stones into these big giant slabs.
Well,
and
I think they pulled them there with sleds.
Put them on sleds, and
that makes no sense.
Had an army of ox carrying them across. It just doesn't make any sense.
For why?
And
that
why?
seems like a lot of work for something like just a burial site. Like it seems like whatever it was must have been really important. If I mean, clearly a lot of work went into it, because we still can't understand how they did it today. So there's something going on.
Yeah, and just the sheer fact of how big the stones are and how heavy they are.
Yeah.
Something would have had to have either the technology
Yeah.
or brute strength to do that. And that's where some of these other theories come in that people have. And one of those is that giants built it.
Giants?
A lot of people actually believe there was a race called the Nephilim, I believe. Nephilims or something. A giant race that existed on the planet way back then.
People believe in fairies, like that they were real too. So, I mean, I certainly don't know. So can't rule it out.
Praise be to whatever
but still,
they
why
believed
those
in.
specific rocks and why those shaped? Oh, so confusing.
Why so big? Yeah,
so confusing.
Be a giant with the strength to pick up these stones.
Yeah.
Built it or helped these civilizations
What if it
build
was
it?
just like a giant's blocks? Like he just like set it up and then was like, whatever, I'm done with this, and walked away.
Something.
And now we've been wondering about it ever since.
If you guys know the story of King Arthur, do you know the story of King Arthur?
Yes. Well, let me see how well I know it. I know that like if you pulled the sword out of the stone, you became the king. Is that it?
Yeah.
And then Arthur was the one who finally did it.
Yeah, that's the basic gist. It was obviously an old tale written in the 12th century, but in the actual tale itself, it depicts Merlin the wizard building Stonehenge with the help of a giant.
Wow.
And what's interesting is that a lot of medieval history is thought to have been fact based upon these tales that were told. So they wrote a lot of tales like King Arthur and all this, but some historians believe that these could be, possibly depictions of real life.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. They're looking at even work of like Socrates and Plato now, where a lot of it was just thought to be folk tales and fiction.
Right, and maybe it wasn't.
And
maybe it was
it's
legit.
not. It's just they're a more creative and artistic version of history telling, documenting history like we have in history books today, but they spoke in a different way that kind of makes it seem like folklore.
Yeah.
But back then it didn't seem that way.
No.
So it's
maybe,
interesting.
yeah. And if you believe in magic,
Do
maybe.
you believe in magic?
Levitation. Another theory is that in the 17th century, an archaeologist by the name of John Aubrey claimed that Stonehenge was actually built by Celtic high priests, also known as Druids. This has been a claim that's been out there for a while, but I believe it's been sort of debunked because it was actually built prior to the Celtic priests even being around, so how could they have even built it? So, but it's just one theory that's out there that some people still believe.
And the last theory, and our favorite theory, is that aliens built Stonehenge.
So the theory that aliens could have either built Stonehenge or assisted the people in building it with their alien technology was put forward by Eric von Daniken, and he's an ancient astronaut theorist, and I think there's even an episode about this, but he believes that extraterrestrials from another world were here very early on in our history, and they assisted the ancient civilizations like the Egyptians with their alien technology, or maybe they, were able to use their alien spacecraft to, raise and lower these giant stones into formation, and maybe there's some significance behind that. Coolest thing about Stonehenge, and the reason why I say aliens, is literally right next to it, in the fields next to it, multiple crop circles have popped up. And obviously no one knows where they came from, who made them. There's obviously some significance to that monument, I think, because of those crop circles.
Or another theory with that is that aliens could have brought some type of technology that we don't even know of today, but at one time it was shared with these types of people in order to advance the human race. And they could have been possibly just using a type of energy that we don't understand, or a device or something that we just don't have, that's been wiped out over the years.
The other big mystery to Stonehenge is why?
Yeah,
Why
what
spend the
fuck?
time and all the effort and moving of these huge boulders to build this monument? Like, what's the point of it?
So we obviously want to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think about these structures they found underneath Stonehenge? What do you think about Stonehenge overall? What is it? Who built it? What was it for? We want to know your opinions, because this one is completely up for grabs and anyone could be right. Be sure to leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think, as well as some other topics you want to see Josh and I talk about on Trippy Talk. Be sure to check out our podcast. You guys, if you like this kind of conversation, you would love our podcast. So be sure to check that out. Everything will be linked below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to both me and Josh. And that's it for us today, guys. I hope you're having a great day.
And stay trippy, friends.
We'll see you next time.